We're going to try and record something now, really.
Oh, okay, yeah. Yeah, sure. Carry on. I'll keep quiet.
Okay, do you want any kind of an intro?
I'm in the village hall!
That's it, that'll do.
Right, well, I'm talking to Reg Meuross, and we're in Devon Village Hall tonight. You've been going around hundreds of village halls, did you say earlier?
Yeah, I've done. I think I've done about 350 on the rural touring network, which is it's an Arts Council sponsored scheme to basically bring otherwise unaffordable acts to village halls. You know, to keep your village halls alive. Really, I started doing it in 2004, and I think it's great because it's as far as I can tell the best use of taxpayers' money that I can think of, paying me to go around the village halls and meet nice people and play.
Quite easy for you because you haven't got that much equipment to carry around, I suppose.
No, I've got a very sort of self-contained little PA which we bought. I originally started out with a duo tours, and now often I do go out with a cello player or Jackie Oates, a fiddle player, or Phil Beer, sometimes from Show of Hands I do it with him. But very few of the halls have their own equipment. So they very rarely have lights. In fact, we started out, the first tour we did was in Cornwall, and we realised very quickly the sort of lack of facilities. And we played in a hall in Cornwall, which I can't remember. I can't remember. I played a hall last night in Essex, and I didn't even remember I'd been there before. But the Cornish hall, they'd had a complete refit, which normally means the badminton club have been in. You know, if they have a refit, it means that they've got a really high ceiling, no facilities for stage, no lighting, nothing, but a nicely white painted floor. You know, for some reason, sports always seems to get the upper hand when it comes to village hall refits, and this one was typical of that. No stage, no backstage area, no lighting. So we asked the guy if he had any lights. He said no. I said, have you got an old-fashioned standard lamp? So he went home and got his old-fashioned standard lamp with the old bell shade, and we used that. What we did was we put it in a table, like a coffee table, between the two of us, so it was gave this kind of front parlour effect. And then we had a lamp on each of the speakers, so it sort of lit the stage. And then from then on, we put that in our rider that we wanted an old-fashioned standard lamp, because 95% of the halls don't have any lighting. I mean, this is very posh. The Roaring Hall actually has its own lighting rig, so it's very unusual.
But then they're intimate venues, aren't they? They're
great venues. I mean, this has transformed my career, really. I mean, it's just been great. I've loved it. And, having done lots of theatres and art centres and, pubs and clubs and that sort of thing over the years, one thing you kind of miss is, that particularly with the kind of material that I do, is that sort of intimacy. And the nice thing about the halls is a lot of people know each other. Yeah. So you already start with a really good atmosphere because everybody's there, all really pleased to see each other. Yeah. We did one in Devon where it was a village of 200 people, and it still had the kind of the squirearchy, if that's what I don't really call it. But I had the squire of the village, and they all brought their food, and he had the head table. And everybody, as they came in, they kind of doffed their hat, went to the top table, said hello, and sat down. Mostly his employees, his estate employees. It was really, really nice to see that still intact, And so you get that atmosphere. Everybody, they're catching up on the month's news or whatever, and so they're all chatting away, and they're pleased to be with their friends, and their neighbours. So you're kind of you sort of feel, I don't feel out of place. I mean, I feel like you've been welcomed by the whole village, by the community. So you're kind of coming. It's a real sort of troubadour sort of thing, in a way. You come into town, sing the songs, get on your white horse, pack up your PA, and you go on again.
So as far as venues go, then, would you say the village halls have turned out to be quite a favourite, apart from the pubs and
really. It's funny when you go back to theatres again after doing village halls, because theatres, I mean, I love theatres, I like doing theatres, but it's something, you've got somebody who does the door, you've got somebody who does the lights, somebody else who does the sound, somebody, and it's kind of, it's bureaucratised,
Yeah.
and sometimes it loses its way. You know, quite often. I mean, you know, a typical example of that. We played a theatre up north, and it was in a village hall tour. And so after being kind of really pampered, really, you know, by the villagers, they come, they make, you know, like Anne has made us food tonight, and she's, you know, they really look after you and find you somewhere to stay. Often you stay with them, you know, with them or with people in the village. So you're very much in the community. And there, you know, there was one guy running the whole thing because it was a Sunday or something, so half the staff were off. And he said, oh, the tea and coffee facilities are in there. And I said, oh, great. And I went in and there was no milk. And I said, oh, you know, like a cup of some milk for the tea. He said, oh, no, the person who buys the milk isn't in today. You know, so there was no question of him going out and getting me a glass. You know, I just travelled 200 miles to get to the gig. And that in a way, kind of, it sort of sums up, you know, how often they lose their way. That you know, a lot of they're there, you know, they're there for you, for me, the entertainer, and for the public who pay to, you know, pay to keep them going and pay to keep me going. And you know, sometimes people lose sight of that.
That personal touch is important, isn't it?
Mm.
So how long have you been gigging then? When did you start?
Doing gigs? I mean, well, all my professional life, really, pretty much. So 25 years or something. Yeah. So well, it's always what I've done. I took some time out. Actually, I took some time out just before. I suppose the village halls kind of saved me in a way, because just before 2004, I took a couple of years out, and I'd moved out of London and I'd moved to Somerset, where I live now. And when I was in London, I was doing a lot of writing for television, film, you know, bits of acting, bits of writing, all sorts of stuff. And you know, when you're in a big city like that, it's possible to do that. It's easier, you know. But as soon as you move away, somebody else, it's like the water on the shore, you know. Somebody else floods in to fill your gap, you know, to fill your space. So I felt like I kind of lost my way a bit when I moved out into the country. And although I liked being here, it was, you know, I sort of felt I needed to reevaluate what I was doing. So I did. I took a bit of time off. Studied modern design for 2 years. And then I started climbing up the walls and wrote 2 albums and went back to music. And the village halls was really my way back in again. And so now, although I do all, you know, the whole gamut of different venues, this is probably my favourite. Yeah.
And what's your background? What training have you had? And I was talking about training and influences, because I know Bob Dylan mentioned influenced you very early on. But what about training? Did you have
no academic training at all. No. I you know, it's typical. I was brought up in a musical family. My grandparents were opera singers, Drury Lane opera singers, and then went on to work in film. So I was, you know, from a very early age, I was singing, and I was singing for them and performing for them and stuff like that. And my mother played piano and sang, and my father was a bugle trumpeter, bugle player in the army, and played harmonica. So, you know, I kind of had that in the family, and I was brought up on pop music, I think, and then I discovered Dylan, and I realised that the reason Dylan is so significant is because he's a songwriter, he's a storyteller, and when I heard what could be done with songs, you know, up to that point, it was all love songs, and it all seemed very self-indulgent. Although that's what you go through, you know, we all go through that, and that means, you know, I do write love songs as well. I write songs about divorce and, you know, what have you. But I like the story aspect of it. I like the fact that you could do that and you could get away with it, you know. And so that's kind of what I've come to now. I'm doing much more in story-based songs, and a lot of them come from doing this touring.